Hello everybody, my name is Stefan. I'm the founder of Stereum, and I will tell you a little bit about Stereum and how to set up your own Ethereum node. So first of all, a little bit of introduction about Stereum and RockLogic. RockLogic is the company that is developing Stereum actively. RockLogic itself was founded 2012. We work in various industries, always with the focus of IT infrastructure, for example, banking, public transport, and so on. We started to get involved with blockchain in 2014. And the first commit to Stereum's predecessor was done in September in 2020. That's 2 months before the Beacon chain mainnet launched. So we got way earlier than actually the mainnet launched for Ethereum. Stereum 2.0, that's the latest version that was just released last week. We started developing already in December 2021, so that's almost 2 years now. That's a pretty long time. So let's talk a little bit about Ethereum nodes. Well, there are a couple of Ethereum nodes. Or first of all, what is an Ethereum node? An Ethereum node is basically a computer that connects to the Ethereum network and can interact with it. There are different node types, of course, like a light node that doesn't store that much data. You also have like a full node that stores almost all the data, and then, of course, the biggest one, the archive nodes that store almost all the data that is out there. And of course, you can use the full nodes for staking. So why should you even run an Ethereum node? Well, the first and obvious reason is that you help the network to decentralize. The more people run an Ethereum node, the more resilient Ethereum as a whole gets. Because local outages doesn't affect Ethereum that much anymore. The second big reason is you want to access Ethereum. That's, for example, your MetaMask you can connect to your own node, or you just want to keep up with the chain and collect some data for your bots or whatever. Of course, you can stake with your own node, and it's always better to not trust anybody and verify yourself, right? What do you need to run your node? Well, that's very easy. You need approximately 8 CPU cores, 16 GB of memory, and a 2 TB SSD. And of course, broadband internet connection. That doesn't mean it needs to be low latency. I myself also ran an Ethereum node on Starlink. That's notorious for higher latencies. So it wasn't a problem at all. Well, how do you run your own node? Well, there are a couple of guides out there. They guide you through the process of setting up your Ethereum node with the CLI. So you type in the commands that the guide tells you to do. Then you have like more simpler setups like ETH Docker, and of course way simpler setups like Avado or a Diep node, and of course Stereum. Then you can run it on almost everything. Right now, already you can run it on cloud providers like AWS or Google Cloud. You can run it on VPS providers like Hetzner, Contabo, and you can even run it on ARM processors for low power consumption, and that makes it pretty versatile. Well, now let's talk a little bit about Stereum. Stereum itself runs also on almost everything. You can run it on your own computer at home that's maybe idling in a corner because it's too old for doing some productive work. You can also run it on VPS, you can run it on ARM, of course, Raspberry Pi, and it's fast. You can set up with Stereum and Ethereum node in a couple of minutes and you're done. You don't need to customize everything, but we give you the ability to do so. And it's easy to do, so We also use Stereum ourselves. So it's not only an open source product that, that we want to offer to the community. We also use it, for example, for Lido to run a couple of thousand validators, keys. And of course, we run mainnet, small Ober mainnet cluster with it, also SSV and a safe stake we'll also try right now. So to give you an example about what Stereum is capable of, up until now, Stereum helped to produce around 20,000 blocks on the mainnet. Already, we have around 20,000 downloads of Stereum v2 GitHub repo artifacts. That's also including update files and so on. That's why the number is a little bit inflated. And with Stereum, we also won some awards, for example, the Austrian Blockchain Award 2 years ago. But let's jump in and set up a node with Stereum. So the first thing is you download the launcher that runs on your local computer, on your local desktop PC. And we also support macOS, of course, we support Windows, and you can even run it on an Ubuntu desktop, for example. So if you open up the launcher, this is what you see. It's a login mask to your remote server. It just needs to be an Ubuntu 2004. Everything else doesn't really matter, and you need SSH access, of course. You just enter a name because you maybe want to save the connection for later use, so you don't need to retype everything. The next thing is, of course, the IP address or the domain where your server is running. The port is also customizable if you run SSH, for example, on a custom port because of security concerns or something. That's also something Stereum is capable of. Then you enter a username, of course, to log in, and a password. We also support SSH keys to log in, also with password. So the next thing is we fill this thing out, right? And then we come to the next step. For new nodes, of course, only. You get presented with 3 options. The first option in the left, the pink one, is the one-click installation, which presents you with a couple of options to install your node. The second one is a customizable solution that only sets up the most necessary parts of Stereum and lets you do the rest all by yourself. So no presets on this one. And the last one, the blue one, is to restore a node where you exported the configuration. So let's talk about the setups. In this case, we chose the one-click installer, of course, to show you the fastest way possible. The first 2 options are just staking, one with Math Boost, the other one without Math Boost. Then we have, of course, SSV and Ober integration. So you can run your own operator, Ober and SSV operator with Stereum. And then we introduced ARM. That's a very important step for us because it is important for people who might have a high energy bill to be able to run their own node at home with ARM. And the last one would be archive node. In the next screen, we see that everything is already pre-selected. We selected the vanilla staking without any Math Boost or so the fastest one possible. And we see everything is already pre-selected. So we got the Geth client selected, we got the Lighthouse client selected, as well as some monitoring tools like Prometheus, Node Exporter, and Grafana to visualize these metrics, of course, to the user. The installation path is also possible to customize. It's of course, a default value there. But in the end, for example, if you have like a VPS with 2 different volumes, then you can point Stereum to the bigger one or the faster one, whatever you prefer, so you can store your data somewhere else. This lets you choose the checkpoint that your node uses to sync. You don't need to use it. You can also just use the dropdown to select one. You can also use your own checkpoint server if you like. For the execution client, unfortunately, there is no possibility right now, so there is only Genesis sync. Then the next one is very easy. Stereum is doing all the work. We just watch. It sets up some system packages, operating system packages. It installs the firewall and configures it for enhanced security. And it also creates some configuration files for the services that Stereum is capable of managing. After that, we already have our new setup. It differs a little bit to the last version we saw. So the release last week changed a lot in this regard. We see all the services that are selected. We see the execution client, the consensus client. We see the validator client, of course. We also see a warning in the right that the free recipient is not set. So Stereum tries to steer the user towards an optimal setup. And we see some services like Grafana and so on in smaller proportions. The next page is the control page. Now you can switch between 3 pages. The first one that we just saw is the node page. This is the control page, which gives you an idea of how much memory does my clients consume, how much CPU usage, how much RAM memory usage. Of course, also peers, that's also important. If you see low peers, that might be due to some network issues and that you might want to look into. And you also have a widget that shows you how much sync is already done with the clients. So, solo staking, because that's what we are here for, right? This shows you a graph, or not a graph, a mask that's, that we did with a more advanced setup. You see here we have multiple execution clients, multiple consensus clients, and validator clients, and they are connected with each other in certain ways. And we see in this case, the mouse hovered over the Teku execution, consensus client. So you immediately see what other services this very service uses, which makes a lot of sense if you want to figure out some error with some misattestations or something. You might know immediately where to go instead of crawling the log files and configuration files first. But let's jump into staking. So first of all, there is nothing staked, right? We just prepared our keys and everything, and we drop it on we can drag and drop it, just a file on the black big surface. And the next one is, of course, Ethereum recognizes this dropped file and asks where you want to actually import it. If you have multiple validator clients, like you saw in the previous picture, you can choose them. In this case, there is only Lighthouse. The next one is, it asks for a slashing database. If you want to migrate keys, I would always recommend using slashing databases to ensure there is no slashing. Of course, also please wait 2 epochs before you import to really verify that the old machine is gone for good. Next, we just enter the password at the bottom, like here, and then the import already starts. So not much hassle around here. After some time, depending on the clients take, it differs from the client how long they take. That's not a Stereum specific thing. That's how the clients decrypt the key and encrypt it again. And we got a nice report of how they do, what validator keys are important and which failed maybe because of a password or something else. And then we already see that the validator key is imported. Every time we log in now and click on the staking page, we see this again. And we can see on which service this runs, also since when this is active, for example. Of course, the state and how much balance this validator has. You can also, for example, exit one validator or give it a name. If you have, for example, one node that you share with your friends and you have in some like 2 or 3 validators, you can name the validators like the owner, which makes it easier to identify them. So how do you configure and customize Stereum to your needs? Well, the next thing is you have an expert mode that's on the top. You can collapse this one and see all the configuration for this service. There is nothing hidden from you. You can do everything what you want. You can do a new volume for the Docker container. You can do port mappings. You can edit each parameter that's there. Of course, we also have some other options that are more convenient, like in this case, the port settings for external port. And next one is updates. That's also a very important thing to do. The first thing is you can see the version of your launcher that you're running, and on the top you also see the operating system updates that might be available. Also, you see what node, Stereum node version you're running. That's also updatable, of course, and the plugins that you need to update. And on the bottom, now in gray, there is a update all that makes what it says. It updates everything except the launcher. And then to the settings we go. Of course, we also have some languages available for people who might be not as fluent in English as others. And at the bottom of the page you find a Stereum auto update. That's also very convenient. You can select this. Usually it's set, and by default it's set to manual, so you need to take care for the updates. But you can also set this to auto, and it will check each morning, early morning, if there are updates available, and install them immediately. So what are the do's and don'ts? Well, the first one is keep it simple. That's very important. Don't overcomplicate your setup. Don't run a failover node with keys already imported or something. That's a disaster to happen. It's better to have a little bit of downtime than to get slashed, always. So what's next for Stereum? First of all, we have external connectivity. This means you could run a beacon node and an execution client on one server, and, for example, a validator client on another. Then custom services. Maybe you wrote some bot that scraps some data from the Ethereum APIs. That's not a problem. You could pass it just in, and you can manage your Docker service completely with Stereum. Turn it on, turn it off, link it, whatever you like. Quick server switch and multi-node setup is the same using the same server for multiple configurations. As we saw earlier, we had multiple execution and consensus clients, and these can be also reflected in the future in different configurations, so you have a more separated setup. And beaconchart.in monitoring app is also currently integrated, so you don't need to use the Stereum mobile app that we have right now. You could also use beaconchart.in's mobile app to monitor your node. Well, if you now got so much interest that you not only want to actually install a Stereum node, but also get involved, we have GitHub, of course. Please drop every bug that you find in there. It helps us a lot. And also join our Discord for discussions and everything. And there is a Gitcoin round coming up. So if you want to help us financially, just drop us something. It's quadratic funding. Very nice to see some involvement there. And here are some links. The first one is stereum.net. That's our project website. The second one is RockLogic. That's our company website. And if you want to message me something directly, here you go. That's Telegram. Thank you very much, especially to the Ethereum, ETH staker event organizers. That's always an awesome event. And have a beautiful day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, if there are questions, you can catch Stefan in the hallways.